These are some ugly-looking fish.
Maybe we're near one of those toxic waste dumps.
Are ya ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh! As I've grown into adulthood and started to enjoy cartoons again, I've often thought how lucky I was to grow up in what, to me, was the absolute perfect sweet spot of animation history. Old enough to still see Hey Arnold and Johnny Bravo on reruns, but still young enough to appreciate newcomers on the scene like El Tigre, Avatar, and Ben 10. But despite the fact that Avatar The Last Airbender is my favorite piece of fictional media, and that The Simpsons is my favorite comedy, there is no doubt in my mind that the most influential cartoon for me had to be SpongeBob SquarePants. The absolute hilarity and charm the series brought to life, particularly in its early seasons, has been unparalleled by any cartoon even to this day. Featuring a perfectly balanced mix of physical comedy and witty dialogue, those first 3 seasons formed the backbone of my sense of humor for decades long after they've aired, and I know that I'm not the only one. I can go back to just about any classic episode or the first movie and have a great time. It's a guaranteed cheer up on a bad day, or makes a great day even greater. But what's the absolute best of the best? Nickelodeon may have run their own official polls back in the day, but everyone's ranking is going to be different. While all of the series was available to choose here, all of the episodes you'll see are from before the first movie. They're all just that good. I had a hard time narrowing it down to just 15. I had over 50 episodes on my original list of potential choices, but to make it fair, I discounted half-hour specials like Christmas Who, or episodes with patchy segments like Ugh, and even Shanghaied. Only 15 minutes or less episodes were allowed for this list. So, enough of this lollygagging. Batten down the comment sections, me boyo. It's about to get turbulent. These are my top 15 SpongeBob SquarePants episodes.
SpongeBob, as a friend, I must say that's really geeky. Oh my gosh! Jeffrey Jellyfish! Oh, wait, Jeffrey! I have to touch you!
Hey!
If ever there was a lesson I needed to learn when I was younger, it was that the people you look up to, when you actually get to know them, can often be the actual worst, especially behind closed doors. Another lesson? Bullies will often get what's coming to them, unless you're in school. I'm Your Biggest Fanatic sees our beloved SpongeBoy taking a case of hero worship too seriously when he meets the leader of the Jelly Spotters, Kevin, at a convention. He's a self-absorbed narcissist who takes joy in watching his fans suffer, and so when SpongeBob tags along to Jellyfish Fields, Kevin expects to have a laugh at his expense, only to be painfully stung over and over again. Usually the rule of 3 is a steadfast one in comedy, and yet I can't stop laughing at each and every sting towards that obnoxious prick Kevin.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3...
Even though Kevin's misfortune is endlessly entertaining, this episode only takes the 15th spot, as while there's a lot of stellar slapstick, it almost is all in the first half of the episode. I would have preferred a better balance to the jokes all the way through. That said, the reaction that the King Jellyfish has to Kevin is hilarious, and is one of the best gags in the episode. Likewise, Kevin's reasoning for getting in on this, fandom, I guess, is likewise a great joke.
Don't look at me! I was just in this for the fashion!
As a couple of side notes, while limited, every word out of Patrick's mouth in this episode is solid gold, between his obsession with touching things at the convention and his hypocritical thoughts on hero worship. All in all, one of SpongeBob's best physical comedy episodes.
Will you cut that out? I'll get you, crazy kids!
While they're far from my favorite characters on the show, every appearance of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy was a treat, as a throwback to the golden age of superheroes and its charming but corny camp. And no other episode does that era the same justice as Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 5. Tired of playing second fiddle to a man wearing a bra, Barnacle Boy joins forces with Man Ray and the Dirty Bubble in an alliance known only as Evil.
These three have named their new alliance. Every villain is Lemons, otherwise known as Evil.
Committing such horrid acts as stealing a bank and ding-dong ditching the elderly, SpongeBob and friends join forces with Mermaid Man to stop them, inheriting the costumes and superpowers of Mermaid Man's original super team. The group, after a call from the chief,
Thank you for the introduction, Quickster, but we all know who I am.
decide to head out to make out Reef to stop them.
Those fiends! Attacking hormonally stressed out children!
Make out Reef. Good times, good times.
I would like to not think about Squidward's romantic history, please. This episode is actually weirdly horny at times, but not in a gross way, just in a wink at the older audience kind of way, which I appreciate much more now that I understand the jokes. After a series of unfortunate incidents caused by inexperience with their new abilities, or just plain bad luck, the heroes are defeated and Barnacle Boy makes his demands. Basically, just to be treated as a superhero, not a sidekick, and he reunites with his old pal. The day is saved, despite the numerous injuries along the way. I used to watch a lot of the old 60s Batman show as a kid as well, and while that's aged like milk, I still have a lot of nostalgia for it, and this was a great love letter to that era.
Did you hear him say anything about eating dirt?
Need a hand? Super pal.
Normally I'm stuffy and boring, but today I'm silly and spontaneous.
A surefire way of getting me to laugh is watching characters get the chance to behave or act like each other, and that goes double for SpongeBob's core cast. Hearing the iconic voices of SpongeBob and Patrick attempting to talk and behave like Squidward is a one-way trip to peak comedy. In Opposite Day, Squidward's finally fed up with SpongeBob and Patrick's antics and decides to call a realtor to sell his house. Knowing that SpongeBob will ruin it for him if he's around, Squidward comes up with a plan to have SpongeBob be quiet and out of the way, by telling him it's Opposite Day. SpongeBob and Patrick have a blast doing everything the wrong way, leading to a variety of fun visual gags, like having Gary eat at the table, blowing themselves up instead of bubbles, and talking backwards, with even some of the background music also going in reverse. Some delightfully meta humor back before meta humor became mainstream.
Hi, Gary. Meow. Gary, where's your holiday spirit?
Eventually, SpongeBob decides that the opposite of SpongeBob is Squidward, and while the real deal is busy picking up after one of his messes, the realtor arrives and SpongeBob and Patrick blow it for Squidward, ensuring he's stuck around them for good.
The winters are harsh. The summers are brutal. There's a wild man-eating clam in the backyard. Now, would you care to see the rest of my home?
Oh well, Squidward. Easy come, easy go.
Filth out with you.
Oh, Mr. Krabs, you shouldn't talk about Squidward like that.
He means this filth, you loon.
What I wouldn't give to hear the original uncensored version of this classic. SpongeBob reads a word on dumpster graffiti, and he and Patrick start using it all the time, making all of Mr. Krabs' customers leave. After finding out it's a bad word, delightfully censored with a dolphin sound effect, the two promise Mr. Krabs never to use that word again.
Yes, sirree, that's bad word number 11. In fact, there are 13 bad words you should never use.
Don't you mean there are only 7?
Not if you're a sailor.
The duo decide to play a nice, wholesome game to pass the time, reflecting upon their actions.
Yeah, me too, because classy sophisticates like us should not stain our lips with cursing.
But when things just keep going wrong for SpongeBob during the game, as well as some taunting of his bad luck by Patrick, he just, well...
Ha! Escalators!
Eels.
Don't worry, SpongeBob, I feel the same way when I draw a hand with no lands in Magic. The two of them decide to tell on each other as they both end up saying the word, leading to some punishment from Mr. Krabs. only for him to trip as he's bringing their punishment and toss out all 13 bad words, each censored with a different sea or marine craft-based sound effect. The duo decide to tell his mother, leading to her fainting from hearing all of that foul language, and eventually all three of them end up painting her house as punishment. Mama Krabs trips when getting them some refreshment.
Ow! My foot!
Mother!
What?
But as it turns out, the sounds themselves might be the swearing?
It's Old Man Jenkins and his jalopy.
Howdy, Mrs. K.
We know that an uncensored version of this episode does exist, as confirmed by Tom Kenny, but it's a shame we'll never see it. I would love to hear SpongeBob say fuck. I just love the constant subversion here, between SpongeBob believing he's just enhancing his sentences, to Krabs eventually succumbing and saying the words, to them all telling Mama Krabs about it, only for her to potentially say something, but it turns out it was just an old car. On a first-time watch, you can never tell where it's gonna go, and it maintains that subversive energy even on the 100th watch.
I declare these fry cook games open!
This one's an episode I've always loved from a creativity standpoint. After we get past the crusty early 2000s CGI on the stadium, everything else is pure gold. Mr. Krabs and Plankton are having their normal rivalry, this time over an Olympics-esque sporting event about fry cooks, and SpongeBob is the Krusty Krabs representative this time around. After an argument, Patrick gets a job at the Chum Bucket as their representative, and the two compete in a number of events, including a pole vault over a vat of oil, which does not end well for some spectators.
Get your fish sticks here!
They also participate in an ice cream-themed diving competition.
Get up there and show him how the common man prepares his frozen dairy treats!
As well as shot putting with burgers, ice skating with butter skates, and of course, wrestling on top of a giant burger. Again, I'm just floored with the creativity of combining Olympic sports with fast food. And honestly, as I'm writing this, it's kind of making me hungry. The episode ends with the two realizing their friendship after a manly match in the ring, a wholesome end to a hilariously fun lineup of quick gag events. They didn't show reruns of this one very much, so fittingly, this was a rare treat every time it would air.
Now get out there
And win
that medal!
This isn't your average everyday darkness. This is advanced darkness.
Rock Bottom is such a strange episode, and honestly as a kid made me extremely uncomfortable despite the laughs. The atmosphere and darkness, the weird signs, they made for the feeling of an alien world. A fitting one for an episode about deep sea life. There's some really freaky stuff in the darkest depths of the ocean. Steven Hillenburg's love for marine biology really is at its best and brightest here. After a trip to Glove World, SpongeBob and Patrick catch the wrong bus and end up in a strange town located presumably at the bottom of a trench. The people here have a strange accent.
Next bus.
I can't understand your accent.
Somehow, they also are still less strange than Midwesterners. While Patrick manages to catch a bus, SpongeBob ends up trapped alone, waiting for the next one, which always just drives away within a second of stopping. Sounds about right. He ends up needing to grab a snack from a vending machine, and each time he tries to put money in the machine, a bus shows up.
Hey! That was mine! Barnacle!
And to make it worse, some asshole steals his candy. He tries numerous more schemes to catch a bus, before he eventually decides to just wait in line at the bus station to ask for a schedule. missing the last one of the night. Thankfully, a good Samaritan not only managed to grab his escape balloon, but blows it up big enough for him to escape this creepy town.
You're welcome.
Unfortunately, Patrick takes a bus back the next morning, and will likely have to deal with a similar ordeal.
Welcome to the Salty Spittoon. How tough are you?
Honestly, I might be underselling this one a bit. Every minute of no weenies allowed is a riot, with a solid gag or joke on average every 30-ish seconds. After a day at the beach turns into a karate match, Sandy and SpongeBob find out about the Salty Spittoon, a social club where only the toughest people get to go inside, but not before ruining someone's picnic lunch.
Way to go, buddy. It took us 3 days to make that potato salad. 3 days!
That joke catches me off guard every time. Anyway, at the Salty Spittoon, you've got to be crazy strong, like capable of at least a Yamcha kill, just to get in.
You need to have muscles. You need to have muscles on your muscles. You need to have muscles on your eyeballs.
After trying and failing to open a fresh bottle of ketchup that the bouncer just happened to have, SpongeBob is recommended a different locale to visit.
Weenie Hut Juniors? Are you saying I belong at Weenie Hut Juniors?
Oh no, sorry. I was actually pointing to the place next to it.
Super Weenie Hut Juniors?
I can't blame him. If I were told to go there, I'd feel about as bad as SpongeBob did after his recent accident.
Too tough for me? That's downright ridiculous. I'll have you know I stubbed my toe last week while watering my spice garden, and I only cried for 20 minutes.
Good old SpongeBob decides to get a soda anyway at Weenie Hut Jr., insisting he isn't one, but gets some bad news.
I'm sorry, sir, but my sensors indicate that you are indeed a weenie.
On the advice of the weenies who frequent Weenie Hut Jr., he decides to get a tough hairdo, leading to potentially my favorite screw the audience joke of all time, at least in SpongeBob.
Nice try, kid. I know it's you.
What are you talking about?
Uh-huh.
Hey, everybody, what's going on?
After a bit of an accidental injury with some of his further attempts to get in, SpongeBob gets the idea to fake a fight with Patrick to get inside, leading to some incredible slapstick courtesy of Patrick's unnatural talent to injure himself on command, apparently.
No, please wait.
After this impressive display, the bouncer finally lets him in, only for him to slip on some ice and end up in the hospital.
I slipped on an ice cube and got covered in boo-boos.
Boo-boos, eh? I think you guys want that hospital.
Weenie Hut General!
Well, that was a ripoff.
When I was putting together this lineup, I actually ended up surprising myself with how high this one ranked. I don't remember it being quite as funny when I was younger, but like a fine cheese, this one just got better with age. Mr. Krabs decides to have SpongeBob and Patrick paint the inside of his house to get them out of his hair for the day. Unfortunately for them, the paint he's chosen is permanent, and there'll be a steep price to pay if he sees even a drop on anything but the wall.
I'll have your rear ends cut off and mounted over me fireplace. So have fun with the job.
Also, unfortunately, Mr. Krabs' wall is covered in knickknacks, which would take forever to take down and paint underneath.
We're not getting paid to move stuff.
Patrick, we're not getting paid at all.
Well, that's what I said. We're not getting paid, and that's final.
Okay, we'll just paint around all this stuff.
Good. Just don't pay me.
After getting the cans of paint open and preparing their brushes, SpongeBob spends several hours mentally preparing for the task at hand.
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
They end up accidentally creating a massive paint bubble, which bursts and conveniently enough covers everything but his knickknacks. Except for a single drop on Mr. Krabs' first $1, which they end up making much worse. They use everything they could think of to remove the paint. A washing machine, a sander, a chainsaw.
Nothing's working!
Wait, SpongeBob! We're not cavemen! We have technology.
Eventually, Mr. Krabs finally makes his way home to see their handiwork.
Criminy Jim Jim! You messed up my dollar! Grandma!
He discovers the paint on the dollar, only to reveal the paint comes off with saliva of all things, and he has a hearty laugh, which removes all the paint.
Ah, crud. I really gotta learn to say it, not spray it.
Sorry, Squidward. It's just so funny. You know what we say.
The only people who don't like a Krabby Patty have never tasted one.
All my life, I've had an innate desire to try foods from my favorite fictional series. As a foodie, it's a dream I'd love to fulfill someday, and there's no food higher on that list than the legendary Krabby Patty. But at least I can take solace in the fact that Squidward was, for a time, just like me. Having never tried the favorite meal in Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob is adamant that he try one.
Never had a Krabby Patty? Well, you've got to have one right now. No wonder you're always so miserable. Here, try this.
He tries everything, the choo-choo train, magic tricks, the works, even pointing out that it is an absolute good, all to no avail.
Good for your soul.
Oh, please. I have no soul.
But after hours of annoyance, Squidward finally gives in and takes a small bite, only to disparage the sandwich as the vilest of vile, cursing all who enjoy them to an early grave.
Does this look unsure to you?
No.
But as soon as SpongeBob leaves, Squidward reveals the truth. The Krabby Patty is the most delicious thing he's ever tasted, and he needs another, leading to a use of my favorite Squidward walk cycle. He attempts to trick SpongeBob into making him a patty, to a painful failure, leading to a last resort.
What do I have to do? Eat one out of the garbage?
I wish I could eat this, but I'm so darn full. Oh well.
I had to say garbage. But, okay.
Unfortunately, a Krabby Patty is just too good to be thrown away. It needs a proper lead-in to the afterlife via cremation. After a restless night, Squidward resolves to sneak in and get a patty, and it's here where I actually had to dock this one a few points. In early broadcasts of this episode, it included a sequence showing off Mr. Krabs' security measures.
This is our burglar alarm? A bucket of water? That was too easy. Hey, this isn't water. This is gas.
I understand why this joke isn't on the syndicated TV versions, but it's not even available on streaming or most home media releases, even though later episodes involve jokes about gas and fire. I'm sad it's near impossible to see the unedited version nowadays. But I digress. Continuing the episode, Squidward makes his way into the patty vault, only for SpongeBob to find him and learn the truth. But as Squidward locks himself in and goes wild, SpongeBob gives him a warning.
Where you can't eat all those patties at one time!
But naturally, Squidward, addicted to the joy of the Krabby Patty, ignores him.
Squidward!
What's gonna happen? Am I gonna blow up?
No, worse! It'll go right to your thighs!
My thighs?
And then you'll blow up.
If it was easier to see the full, unedited version, this one would go up a few spots, but as it is, 7th place isn't too bad when the competition is all solid gold.
Why?
Are you open?
Read the sign.
I'll have a Krabby Patty Deluxe and a double chili kelp fries.
No, you won't. I can't hang out here all night. I've got a life.
This one struck a nerve down to my very soul, as someone who's worked in fast food for a while. There's always been something about SpongeBob's creepy episodes that makes them so special. Be it the classic Halloween episode Scaredy Pants, the previously mentioned Rock Bottom, the unnerving Nasty Patty, or this entry, Graveyard Shift, I'm always fascinated by how well SpongeBob manages to balance horror and comedy together. In this episode, Mr. Krabs decides to keep the Krusty Krab open forever, leaving SpongeBob and Squidward to handle the night shift.
See you in the morning, boys! I can't hang out here all night. I got a life.
That one also hit me in my soul, or what's left of it after working in fast food. Bored out of his mind, Squidward makes up a story about the hash-slinging Slasher, a former fry cook of the Krusty Krab who chopped his own hand off and replaced it with a spatula.
And he replaced his hand with a rusty spatula. And then he got hit by a bus. And at his funeral, they fired him.
Jeez, tough day. Squidward reveals the 3 signs of the ghost's arrival.
First, the lights will flicker on and off. Next, the phone will ring and there will be nobody there. And finally, the hash-slinging Slasher arrives in the ghost of the bus that ran him over.
After SpongeBob won't stop screaming, Squidward reveals it was all just a joke before strange noises begin. It's SpongeBob mopping the ceiling. But then the signs begin, just as he said. First the lights, then the phone.
All right, what was it? There was the lights, and the phone, and the walls will ooze green slime. Oh, wait, they always do that.
A mysterious figure arrives on the bus and slowly enters the restaurant, approaching the counter. Fearing for their lives, the two reveal their deepest secrets.
SpongeBob, no matter what I've said, I've always sort of liked you.
Squidward, I used your clarinet to unclog my toilet.
Huh?
I love how despite being on the proverbial brink of death, this still annoys him enough to knock him out of fear for just a brief second. The figure steps into the light, revealing a guy who just wants a job application. He called previously but hung up due to anxiety. Ugh, I've been there. But wait, if that was him on the phone and him on the bus, who was flickering the lights?
Nosferatu!
Okay, I know I said it before, but this may be the greatest joke in SpongeBob history. The greatest non sequitur, screw the audience joke ever conceived. Why is Count Orlok from the 1920-22 German silent horror film Nosferatu here? Why is he at the Krusty Krab? Why is he just such a playful scamp? It's absolutely genius, and something that the beta reveal of this episode, Floorboard Harry, would likely have lacked.
Rev up those fryers, cause I am sure hungry for...
Hello, you've reached the house of unrecognized talent. Please start after the...
Sounds as though you've got a dying animal to attend to, eh, old chum?
I feel like I might get destroyed in the comments for putting this one only at number 5, but make no mistake, Band Geeks at least takes the title of most memorable episode by far, all due to that stellar ending, which I won't be playing because copyright is a... Squidward receives a call by his old band classmate, Squilliam Fancyson, who asks him to cover for him at the upcoming Bubble Bowl event. Squidward, in an attempt to get the better of his rival, is determined to put together a band in 4 days to show him up, inviting the people of Bikini Bottom to learn under him with some rented equipment. Unfortunately, no one has any experience.
How many of you have played musical instruments before?
Do instruments of torture count?
No.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
No, Patrick, mayonnaise is not an instrument. Horseradish is not an instrument either. Go! Good! Now the wind! And the drums! Too bad that didn't kill me.
And after numerous fights and an unfortunate flag twirling incident, the band is not ready to perform, leading Squidward to walk away crying. SpongeBob rallies the people with a rousing speech about how, if you pretend Squidward is a fireman or medical worker, he's really not so bad.
Squidward's always been there for us when it was convenient for him.
The band performs and blows away the crowd by performing Sweet Victory by David Glenn Isley, and Squilliam has a heart attack from the sheer power of rock and roll. This episode's so compelling because Squidward, a character we normally are rooting for to lose, is brilliantly framed as sympathetic and put in the role of the hero, and after seeing failure after failure, we all want to see him win every once in a while. The physical comedy in this one is also brilliant, with a fight scene utilizing musical instruments that is just fantastically creative. Try not to dunk on me too hard in the comments for putting it so low. If ever there was a hat I'd like to own, it was this one. Mr. Krabs has a yard sale full of trash he found, including a novelty soda drinking hat, which he sells to SpongeBob. Unfortunately for him, the hat is extremely desirable by a group of collectors who are prepared to offer him ludicrous amounts of money for it, and being Mr. Krabs, he just can't resist. He tries to convince SpongeBob that the hat makes him look like a girl, but SpongeBob doesn't care about gender norms. His second plan involves trading him a different novelty hat.
How about this air-conditioned one?
Seems a little dangerous.
The juicer? Foxy Grandpa!
Alright, I changed my mind. I want the Foxy Grandpa hat. Left with no other choice, Krabs decides to scare it off of him, pretending to be a ghost and warning SpongeBob that the hat is cursed and must be returned to its owner, Smitty Warben Jaegerman Jensen. To his surprise, SpongeBob returns it to the cemetery, and Krabs sets off to get it, though he wants to avoid being seen by passerby, including Squidward.
Here lies Squidward's hopes and dreams. What a baby.
Oh man, I can relate to that one. Mr. Krabs can't find the grave, so he searches his memory of SpongeBob's words for a clue.
Licking doorknobs is illegal on other planets.
Good advice. Eventually, he finds the grave before having a brief moral quandary.
Am I really gonna defile this grave for money? Of course I am!
Unfortunately for him, his antics raise an army of the undead to reclaim this novelty hat, though Krabs is worried about something much worse, so he prepares to fight them off.
No! I've seen this on the Late Show! You ghoulish fiends hold me down and take turns nibbling on my innards! Then you eat my brain and leave my body for the buzzards!
That's disgusting. We just want the hat back.
After a long, grueling night of non-stop battle, Mr. Krabs single-handedly defeats the army and finds his potential buyers, only to find that an entire warehouse full of the hats was found, making all of his effort for naught. Oh well.
Let's give Mr. Krabs a big hand.
Now that's worth $1 million.
Chocolate! 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 Chocolate!
I think I'd like some chocolate while I'm working on this script. This episode is one of the absolute peaks of SpongeBob's endless quotability, from the con man to the chocolate-obsessed fish, to the old ladies, and Patrick while focusing. I have quoted this episode quite possibly more than any other. SpongeBob and Patrick decide to become entrepreneurs to make money, and end up deciding to sell chocolate bars door to door. After their first potential customer flies into an angry rage upon just hearing the word chocolate, they make their way to the home, or at least base of operations, for a local con man who is much more adept at this salesman business than them. After further failed attempts at selling, the screaming chocolate maniac finds them, a pattern which happens all throughout the episode. While taking a break, our dynamic duo decide they need a new plan of attack.
A new tactic.
I got it! Let's get naked!
No, let's save that for when we're selling real estate.
That one always catches me off guard. After seeing a sign advertising barnacle chips, the pair finally figure it out. To be a salesman, the key is to stretch the truth. Their first victim is an elderly woman and her even more elderly mother, whom they tell that their product is for skincare and helps you live forever. Upon their first success, they continue to get grander and grander with their claims.
It'll make your hair grow.
Great! My wife's trying to grow a beard.
They'll make you sound smart.
I'll take 20!
It'll keep your face from getting any uglier. Just in time.
They make you fly.
You'll fall in love.
They'll bring world peace.
You'll walk through walls.
You'll rule the world.
Unfortunately, their unintentional con game gets interrupted by, who else? The same con man from before, this time dressed in bandages and hospital gear.
I was born with glass bones and paper skin. Every morning I break my legs, and every afternoon I break my arms. At night, I lie awake in agony until my heart attacks put me to sleep.
Really pulled the old Uno reverse card on them. To his credit, he is great at conning people, or at least SpongeBob and Patrick. They end up buying a bunch more product to sell from him.
Let's face it, Patrick. We're failures.
I can live with that.
Good lord, why is this show so relatable? The chocolate maniac finally arrives to take his vengeance. Or, more appropriately,
I've been trying to catch you boys all day! Now that I've got you right where I want you, I'd like to buy all your chocolate.
Our two heroes, finally rich, decide to rent out a fancy restaurant on an unusual date. From my memory, this was the first episode I saw as a kid that really subverted expectation and ended with a screw the audience joke. It may not be the best at doing that, but I always come back to this one for a good laugh, similarly to the next entry.
Mr. Crab, we don't serve pizza. We don't deliver.
We don't deliver, but you do.
It's been a really long time, but I think this may have been the first episode of SpongeBob I ever saw, and it's still just as delightful all these years later. As the Krusty Krab closes for the evening, a customer calls and inquires about pizza, which Mr. Krabs agrees to have delivered, sending SpongeBob and Squidward to do so. Unfortunately, SpongeBob's lack of driving knowledge results in them getting stranded in the middle of nowhere with an empty tank of gas.
Well, how can it get any worse?
Oof, I wish all cars worked like that. I'd never have to pay for gas again, and world peace could be accomplished. SpongeBob attempts to use the pioneer method of hitchhiking to no avail. Afterward, the two get sucked up by a tornado and dumped even further from civilization, but thankfully, SpongeBob predicted Fortnite. Leading to another brilliant pioneer trick, using moss to point towards civilization.
So let me get this straight. You think that we should go that way?
Yep.
Well, then I'm going this way.
Huh? Squid, wait! I don't think...
Trust me, I know where I'm going.
This is brilliant foreshadowing for later. But first, a song I still sing to myself 20 years later.
Krusty Krab, pizza is the pizza, yeah, for you and me.
The two get hungry, attempting yet another pioneer trick, eating coral, before having an argument about eating the pizza. SpongeBob insists it's for the customer, but Squidward wants food now. Thankfully, SpongeBob spots a method to save them, a large rock. Didn't you know pioneers used to drive those babies for miles?
Will you forget the stupid pioneers? Have you ever noticed that there are none of them left? That's because they were lousy hitchhikers, ate coral, and took directions from algae. And now you're telling me they thought they could drive rocks? Hold on there, Jethro!
Okay, so remember how I said Nosferatu or Mama Krabs, potentially swearing, being my favorite screw the audience joke? This is the only one that gives those a run for their money. I've been quoting this freaking scene for as long as I've been capable of speech, basically. The foreshadowing from earlier is something you never notice until you're an adult, but it just adds to the brilliance of this one gag. The two drive the rock to the customer's place, only for him to angrily berate poor SpongeBob for forgetting their drink, saying he never thinks of the customer, and causing him to cry, leading to Squidward's best moment, hands down.
Another one? Look, I told your little friend I ain't paying for that!
Well, this one's on the...
A wholesome ending for the episode. If it weren't for SpongeBob taking them back to work, as their next shift is about to begin, which proves that the customer truly was just around the corner. Poor Squidward can never catch a break.
Oh, my aching tentacles.
Wait a second, if SpongeBob can drive the rock, why can't he drive the boat? You know what? Forget it. Before we move on, I gotta cover the honorable mentions, and I just can't narrow it down. When I set out to do this list, I picked over 50 potential episodes and watched all of them. I won't go into these, but I've included a list on screen, so I'd suggest pausing. If your favorite isn't on the main lineup, there's a pretty solid chance it's here. With those out of the way, I think if you've been paying close attention to the list and honorable mentions, you know exactly what episode takes that #1 spot. And now, the moment you've been waiting for!
The
Well, here it is. The greatest classic SpongeBob episode, nay, the greatest SpongeBob episode of all time. It remains in our minds because of just how different it is. It was great as a kid, but now as an adult who's worked in fast food for longer than I would have liked, this episode goes from good to transcendent. The visual humor from the personal hygiene segment, the I really wish I weren't here right now button, which I own a replica of, the fear Patrick has of the narrator in one of the greatest fourth wall breaks, leading to the reaction every fast food worker has when dealing with a stupid or rude customer. The phrase eager McBeaver, which has been in my vocabulary for decades, maximum overdrive, Mr. Krabs' cost-cutting measures, and supposedly imported ice cubes, the visual of interfacing with your boss. Oh boy, I have been there. All leading up to the greatest rug pull of all time at the end. Just showing the gags here and there isn't enough for this episode. It must be enjoyed all in one go. Go! Watch it right now. Pause the video, watch it, and I dare you to disagree with me that this is one of the greatest pieces of animation ever made. It takes every aspect that makes SpongeBob so special and blends it together into the perfect episode, with not a single gag failing to put me in hysterics every single time. People make parodies of this episode with their own YouTube content. That's how memorable it is. I can say definitively, without a doubt, it is my favorite SpongeBob episode of all time. But then again, every episode here, and even in their honorable mentions, is solid gold. So I can't blame you for picking this or any other episode from the list as your favorite. I've made enough hoopla for one day. So, now that we've counted down the list, revisited memory lane, it's time to ask, what is it about this show in particular that has us so captivated? What do these classic episodes have that keep us coming back, that have the timeless staying power to remain in our consciousness even 20 or more years later? Is it the meta humor, slapstick, non sequiturs, the endlessly quotable audio jokes or visual gags? It's not one thing that brings us so much joy, but the writer's flawless incorporation of all of these styles of humor, mixing and matching whatever is most appropriate for their story. A story that, while taking a back seat to the humor, manages to stay consistent, relatable, and optimistic, with wonderful characters that we all can relate to. These qualities are shared only by a select few cartoons, nay, shows in general. Off the top of my head, only 2 series managed to pull this off with the same level as SpongeBob's classic episodes. The first 9 or so seasons of The Simpsons, and the classic Looney Tunes. Pre-movie era SpongeBob is the modern equivalent. It never goes out of date. Its humor is so meticulously crafted to maintain an evergreen status that still gets me laughing to this very day. A status of one of the very greatest cartoons of all time. Steven Hillenburg was a visionary ahead of his time, as was his team. SpongeBob wouldn't be as wonderful without his writing staff, such as Dan Povenmire, Mr. Lawrence, or Meriwether Williams, all of whom would go on to contribute to more wonderful cartoons later. Likewise, the series' perfect cast elevates the material beyond what it could have been with a different cast. Tom Kenny, Roger Bumpus, Clancy Brown, Bill Fagerbakke, Carolyn Lawrence, and more all bring this wonderful world of nautical nonsense to life. There will never be another show like SpongeBob. So, my hat's off to you, Krusty Crew. The FUN you've given me will continue to be in mine and the hearts of millions of kids and adults for decades to come. But what about you? What's your favorite SpongeBob episode? Do you agree with my picks? Are there some I missed? What's your favorite joke from SpongeBob? Please let me know in the comments, and while you're here, if you like what you saw today, maybe leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you'll never miss an upload from me. Or maybe follow me on Twitter, @IncarnateNerd. Regardless, I hope to see you back in the next video. This has been Gigi, the Nerd Incarnate, and I'd love to hear from you. I hope you have an incredible day. Peace out!